Coming up on Seahawks Today, I'm Harrison Graham filling in for Tyler Jones, who's on vacation. Some more trade rumors around Tyler Lockett. Could he be on the move? Plus, are the Seahawks going to keep Michael Penix in Seattle? Lots to dive into on today's show. Before we get to all of that, join the movement here on Seahawks Today, trying to get to 51,500 subscribers on today's show. I want to wake up tomorrow to 51,500. So hit that sub button, spread the word, share this video with a friend, and tell them to subscribe for daily Seahawks content. We will continue to keep you guys in the loop. All right, could Tyler Lockett end up in Cincinnati? Bleacher Report proposed an idea of the Bengals acquiring Lockett after Tee Higgins' trade request, and obviously Higgins could be on the move. So if the Seahawks comply with that trade request, getting a guy like Lockett back to be a number 2 next to Jamar Chase would make sense from their standpoint. The question is, does it make sense from Seattle's? Here's Maurice Mouton, who proposed this idea per Bleacher Report. He said, if the Bengals don't think they will retain Higgins, the club can acquire Lockett to complement Chase in the passing game. The Seahawks' new regime may view Tyler Lockett as an expendable asset, with the 2023 first-rounder Jaxon Smith-Njigba behind him on the depth chart. Because of Lockett's age, Cincinnati may be able to acquire him in exchange for a 5th-round pick. Now, Smitty, you're the resident Seahawks fan here. We were kind of talking about this pre-show. I could understand Seattle being willing to move Lockett to maybe open the door for more JSN. But a 5th-round pick, I know it's not a strong trade market this offseason. I don't know. I'd almost just rather keep him at that point.
I agree, because you look at a guy like Tyler Lockett. Yes, he is turning 32 years old, but he's a guy who, throughout his Seahawks tenure, hasn't taken a ton of hits. He likes to be a possession receiver, and honestly, if he catches it in the middle of the field, he'll go down in a lot of instances and not take those hits from defenders. So he just seems like a guy who doesn't really his game isn't affected a ton by age. He seems like the same player last year as he had been the past 4 seasons. Just you add Jaxon Smith-Njigba into the mix, and his yards go down a little bit. I think a 5th-rounder is just a little low for me in this scenario.
Yeah, because even if you view him as a number 3, like even if JSN surpasses him this year, like he's still like probably the best 3 in football at that point. Like, is that worth a 5th-round pick? I mean, especially in a lot of draft experts don't consider this a deep draft. Like, a lot of guys have called this a 4-round draft. So who are you getting in the 5th round that is going to replace Tyler Lockett? Probably nobody. So unless a trade, if you get offered a 3rd or something like that, maybe a 4th and a 5th, maybe I would do it. But, I guess it just kind of depends on where Seattle feels like they're at under this new coaching regime. Are they trying to win this year? Are they building for the future? We'll have to see where that goes. You look at more on Lockett here. He's got a nice, team-friendly deal. I mean, less than $15 million per year for what he provides, which is still quality wide receiver 2 production. Sure, the numbers went down a little bit last year, but that was to be expected once they brought in JSN. They also used the tight ends a decent amount last year in this offense. We'll see what direction they go in now offensively, what the vision is with a new offensive coordinator on board. I've always been a fan, though, and I agree with Smitty. Like, his game, it's never been predicated on straight-line speed. It's never been a super physical game where, like Julio Jones, for example, one day he just wasn't the same player anymore. Like, I think he can be an 800-yard-plus guy for another 3 years. Like, I really do think he can provide that still, Smitty.
Yeah, and I don't think, to the Seahawks' credit, they want to incorporate JSN more into this offense, and rightfully so. He's probably the most talented receiver in that room as far as just being a wide receiver in the NFL. Obviously, DK Metcalf with the athleticism and the strength and size, he has a leg up there. But JSN, as a wide receiver talent, is probably your top guy in that room. They want to get him more involved. But I don't think you have to trade Tyler Lockett for that to happen. You can just draw up more plays for a guy like JSN, put him in more pre-snap motion, and put him on more hot routes. I just don't think that getting rid of Tyler Lockett, especially a guy who could be a great mentor in the early years of Jaxon Smith-Njigba's career, trading him would not be just the end-all, be-all of Jaxon Smith-Njigba rising up this depth chart.
And I think, too, even if you lessen Lockett's role a little bit, maybe he's playing 70% of offensive snaps instead of 90%. That could extend his career, and maybe you get an extra couple of years out of him beyond this contract if he wants to stay there, which he kind of strikes me as a guy who would like to be a one-team type of player. So
he has foundations in Seattle.
Yeah.
He does a lot of charity work up there. He's actually getting into real estate up in Washington as well. So he doesn't seem like a guy who's like eager to leave. He wanted to get that contract restructured and stay in Seattle.
I could see it if they went into like a full-blown rebuild, but it doesn't seem like they're doing that. It seems like there could be like a transition year coming up, and maybe that is this year where it's like, all right, we're going to roll with Geno one more year, but we might draft the quarterback on day 2, or maybe they go get Michael Penix or something like that. But unless they're tearing things down, I mean, I don't think taking a 5th-round pick for Tyler Lockett is that beneficial whatsoever. So what do you guys think? Would you trade Tyler Lockett for a 5th-round pick? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I'm hammering my in for no on this one. Coming up next, Michael Penix Jr. is reportedly rising up draft boards. He impressed a lot of folks at his pro day with his athleticism. We know what he can do with his arm as well. We're going to dive into that and whether or not the Seahawks could decide to draft him. But first, today's show is sponsored by Game Time. Guys, baseball season is here. You got the Mariners in action, obviously, in football season. You got Seahawks games to go to. And Game Time gets you the best prices for all sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, and a whole lot more. And what they specialize in is last-minute deals, flash sales, zone deals. You could wake up the day of a sporting event just hours before and say, hey, I feel like going to the ballpark, watching the Mariners today. Boom, you're going to find the best prices available. And if you see a better price within a different ticketing service, take a screenshot, send it to Game Time. They will lower the price because they want you to have the best deal available. Go check them out today. It is Game Time. Download the app, search Game Time in your app store, use promo code CHATSPORTS, all one word, CHATSPORTS. That's going to get you $20 off your first purchase. Sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, and a whole lot more. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You will not regret it. Get out of your house and take advantage of the best prices available with Game Time. All right, let's start Michael Penix Jr. here as we continue here on Seahawks Today. Charles Davis of NFL.com released his latest mock draft, and they have Seattle taking Michael Penix Jr. as he's been moving up draft boards. Here's Charles Davis' snippet here from this selection. Surprise! GM John Schneider should have no trouble doing his homework on the big-arm quarterback who starred just down the road in Seattle for the past 2 seasons. Penix reunites with former Washington offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, who now holds the same title with the Seahawks. And in this mock, Penix was the 5th quarterback that went off the board in the top 20. And look, I've said this. I know I'm not the normal host here on Seahawks Today, but on other shows, I think if the medicals check out, for me, Penix is QB4 in this draft, and you could talk me into QB3. I think he is a better deliverer of the football than Jaden Daniels. I really do. Now, I have Daniels higher because he's more mobile. There aren't as many medical concerns, obviously, but Michael Penix Jr., if you go back and watch that Texas game, it's one of the best quarterback performances at the collegiate level I've ever seen. He can make every throw with velocity, with touch. He challenges defenders downfield. He showed at his pro day he's athletic. He can run. You're not going to call design runs for him, but if there were questions about him being able to move around, he put those to rest. So it really just comes down to the medicals, and if they check out, I absolutely think he's a first-round pick. Do you want to draft Michael Penix Jr. at number 16 overall? Type D for draft, or you can type P for pass. I would be more than happy to do it. Now, I understand if Seattle wants to get another playmaker on offense or wants to add something on that defense, maybe on the defensive line. But, look, if they really like Penix and you don't think Geno's here for the long term, you could certainly do worse than drafting the Washington quarterback. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for any and all Seahawks draft news, rumors, trade buzz. We got you covered here on Seahawks Today. Hit that big subscribe button and don't miss out. You get to know Michael Penix a little bit. I know a lot of you guys know him already. 2 terrific seasons at Washington after an up-and-down injury-filled career at Indiana. He was first-team All-American this year, won the Maxwell Award as well, best offensive player in college football. And Mel Kiper has him as his 6th QB on his big board. I got to think that's medically influenced because I don't see how anyone with even decent football acumen could watch him and Bo Nix play and say Bo Nix is a better prospect if you take the medical information out of it. I just don't see it. Penix has a stronger arm. He can make more of the throws. Sure, Nix's completion percentage is more accurate, but also a much more gimmicky offense. And Penix with Seattle specifically, it's kind of plug and play. He knows Ryan Grubb like the back of his hand. I would assume that offense isn't going to change much either with Geno Smith. That's the similar type of playing style that he played in college at West Virginia. So I really like Penix. You look at the numbers of that game I referenced earlier against Texas. I mean, it truly is, like, I'm not blowing smoke. It's the best QB game I saw any quarterback in college football play this year, and I would argue in recent memory, it's definitely up there for me. And Smitty, I know you've got some opinions on this as well, as Geno's kind of just year to year at this point in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they have no loyalty to Geno after this season. Obviously, they could have got rid of him this offseason, but, you know, with the security you want at the quarterback position, obviously Geno isn't the worst option to go with, so they gave him his guaranteed money, and rightfully so. I'd say he earned enough of that this past season. He wasn't the worst quarterback in the league, like a lot of people, you know, in Seattle like to think about in their anger-filled rants, but Penix does have the opportunity to be arguably the second most pro-ready quarterback in this draft. I mean, maybe you could argue Drake May over him, obviously Caleb Williams, but I think as far as pro-ready and comfortability standards go, Penix could be right at the top of this board for quarterbacks and has the ability to take over Geno's job in year one. Obviously, this, like you said, Harrison, this could be a transition year for Seattle, but if Geno isn't playing well by, like, Thanksgiving and Penix is improving or showing his elite level in practice, there's no reason that Ryan Grubb and the Seahawks coaching staff would not want to go with him for the second half, the last couple of games, the home stretch of this season. And if you have Penix, guess what? You have a quarterback on a rookie deal. You can provide this team with a lot of cap flexibility for the next 3, 4, 5 years to build up this roster and a Super Bowl contender like last time you did with Russell Wilson.
And you think about personnel, too, of what Penix is used to. He had 3 good receivers at Washington. Well, Seattle's got 3 good receivers as well with JSN, DK, and Tyler Lockett, who we talked about earlier. Same offensive coordinator. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better fit in terms of talent and just comfortability with Ryan Grubb being there. And I'm with you. You bring him in here, you say, hey, Geno's our starter, but hey, if you're 3-6, you know, heading into week 10, week 11, and you're kind of out of the mix, hey.
Why wouldn't you?
I think Michael Penix, I'm with you, like, he's probably closer to his ceiling than some of these other QB prospects, but what that also means is he could probably play sooner than a J.J. McCarthy, a Jaden Daniels, even a Drake May, because he's played so much football at the collegiate level and at a high level. So I like the fit. Is it the biggest need? No, but in a deep QB draft, if one of them falls to 16 in a normal year where he might go top 10, the value might be worth the risk if you are Seattle.
Absolutely. And you talk about the risk, and that is the injury factor, right? But I want to bring up this quote from Colin Cowherd, who I do not always love to reference here on the show, but he had this quote a couple days ago on The Herd where he said, Joe Burrow was hurt in college and is perpetually hurt in the NFL. Do you think Cincinnati regrets drafting him?
Of course not.
No. They made a Super Bowl in his second season. So, like, I don't see injury concerns for a guy who was not injured last year as a reason to not draft him in the first round. Obviously, if he falls to you, in the second, third round, it's a no-brainer. But, again, I think he's a first-round talent. You should be drafting on talent and potential to take you to a Super Bowl, and that's what Penix can do, in my opinion.
And think about it too, Smitty, before we wrap up here. Like, you think of the NFC West. Matthew Stafford, he's kind of just year to year at this point. Like, he's not going to play forever. That Rams team's getting older. McVay could retire at any time. So, like, that's a team that, they're fine for now, but you could potentially elevate above them if you get a good young quarterback. As good as the Niners are, they kind of got like 2 years left. Like, then they either have to pay Brock or reset at quarterback. So that's an unknown in a couple of years. Arizona, I think they could be building something, but they're not there yet. Like, the West has been tough, but like,
it's still kind of wide open.
Yeah, it's not as crazy as it is. Like, sure, this year it's the Niners division, but like, I don't think Seattle's should be thinking about just 2024. You've got a new coach. You've got a quarterback who's kind of year to year at this point. Like, get Michael Penix in here if the medicals check out. And, hey, maybe by the end of the year, going into 2025, you're like, man, like, we might be like a sneaky dark horse to win the NFC West in 2025 if things go well. So
I think it's entirely possible.
Yeah, I completely would like to see Seattle be aggressive in that regard. Now, name a player you want Seattle to draft with that number 16 pick. I'd be cool with Penix if he's sitting there. There's a lot of good players in that range. Hell, if Brock Bowers is sitting there at 16, I would love that as well. But drop a name down in the comments. And again, don't forget to subscribe to Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler pre-recorded some videos that are going to go out on the channel, but certain days over the next week or so, we will have you covered when new news and rumors drops as well. So don't miss out. We'll see you next time.